What we are trying to bring in through our education and our training efforts are essentially making them aware of the end-to-end supply chain connectivity.
So, how do you think the Russia and Ukraine war has affected the supply chain?
So we are trying to create that balance between what is needed and what you already have. How do I migrate from what I have into something that is more relevant to the consumer today? Even the best corporates today do not have a visibility beyond what is called as a superstar. Yes, definitely, yes.
Basically, you're thankful to COVID. Sir, so first of all, thank you for coming on the podcast. You started your journey as an executive director, then you shifted to profession like professor. Then you landed up at ISCM, which is the Indian Institute of Supply Chain Management. So, what improvised you to join the supply chain management?
When I was a director of a software firm. We were doing treasury and risk management solutions.
Yes.
And when I looked at the banking sector, we were doing a lot of work with 55 banks in the country. They're my clients, and I was consulting them on various aspects of risk. When I looked at the risk perspective there, I realized that the biggest contributor of risk to the banking system came from the corporate side, which is credit risk. When I looked at credit risk and when I looked at the corporate, I realized that the biggest risk in the corporate is from the supply chain. Because whatever happens in the corporate, it's either upstream from your manufacturing to your supply base origin of the raw material, or downstream from the factory to the consumer. These are the two areas which get disrupted a lot. And if these are the areas of disruption, I said, how can we strengthen these two sides of it, which is essentially supply chain management? So I came into supply chain management from a risk perspective, trying to bring in some kind of semblance and order to how supply chain corporates should look at supply chain risk and resilience. Thankfully for me, COVID was a very positive development. Till COVID hit us, a lot of corporates whom we were speaking to were saying that we are okay. We are not very worried. Everything is going good. Thanks to COVID today, everyone is talking the language that we were speaking earlier, saying that risk resilience, that is the focus that you should be having. And suddenly we are seeing a lot of interest coming up in understanding supply chain in a little bit more holistic, looking at how disruptions happen, how disruptions propagate within the supply chain, and when can I intervene and when should I not intervene. So we kind of started. Now corporates have become very, very sensitive to this risk, and as a consequence, today any supply chain meet you will see resilience as the one word which is commonly used. So that's the reason I came into supply chain. And in 2014, when we created the Institute of Supply Chain Management, both Dr. Rakesh Singh, who is the chairman of the institute, and I realized that supply chain is one area where at that point in time we did not have a focus on. Not too many people were focusing on supply chains. And we started to bring that focus into supply chain. Though technically we started the institute in 2010, but both of us were at that point in time working at Durga Devi Saraf Institute of Management Studies, where we created a PGDM in supply chain management. But 2014, we felt that we need to take it to the industry, so we floated the Institute of Supply Chain Management, and that's how I have been associated with supply chain management very closely from 2010, but much more closer since 14, and 19 has been 20, COVID has been the single biggest factor which has changed people's outlook on supply chain.
So you're thankful to COVID.
Yes, definitely, yes.
Basically, you're thankful to COVID. Nice, nice. So, sir, basically, in short, you want to say that supply chain management is the root cause of each and every problem in the corporates.
See, what happens is that any disruption which emanates within your supply chain can affect corporate profitability in a very big way. And quite often, corporates are not aware where in the supply chain is the problem happening.
Yes.
Most of the time, they come to know of it as a supplier delaying a supply. So when you have placed an order, you have to receive a certain raw material in a particular schedule. If the schedule is disrupted, that is when the corporate comes to know that there is some problem.
Yes.
But by the time it is too late for you to even change what you need to do, then you need to arrange for an alternate source. It's a higher cost. and your profitability goes for a toss. Similarly, downstream, if something happens and you're not able to fulfill the requirement of your consumers, you're lost an opportunity, lost sales. So either way, when you look at it, this becomes the core area of concern for a corporate. Till COVID, corporates were not very worried about it. They thought that things will happen, things will, earlier there were disruptions in supply chains, but most of it was only on one side of it. Either the demand would get disrupted or the supply would get disrupted. And they were able to kind of manage it. COVID was one area where both supply and demand got disrupted. And that is when they sat up and said, oh my God, most of my problems are not within my organization, but it is in my extended supply chain, into which I have no visibility. So even the best corporates today do not have a visibility beyond what is called as a superstar list.
Mm.
From there, how does your product travel to the last village on the frontiers of the country? How does the product get consumed there? The company doesn't know about it. And therefore, that trail, not understanding that entire piece of the supply chain, not understanding where those disruptions come from, is a bigger issue. There are other smaller issues which the corporate does face. For example, people who are into export import will be having an exchange risk. There could be a labor risk. There could be a power shutdown, but these are more controllable. What you cannot control is that seventh tier supplier of yours going to be a viable entity? Will he be able to meet his requirements? And if he gets disrupted, how does my chain then perform? That visibility was not there. And that is what is creating problems in the supply chain.
Okay, understood. So it's basically like your course will provide this visibility to the corporates to how they can control the broad concept, which is the supply chain.
What we are trying to bring in through our education and our training efforts are essentially making them aware of the end-to-end supply chain connectivity. We cannot look at supply. Essentially, supply chain earlier was, divisions, departments. There will be somebody who will be looking at transportation, somebody will be looking at warehousing, a third person will be looking at sourcing, a fourth person will be looking at network design. What we are saying is that you need to bring all of them onto the same platform, and not just you. You have to bring your extended ecosystem onto the same platform if you have to become resilient. Otherwise, what happens is that whatever you do, you have improved yourself. But what happens to your supplier if he cannot supply you what you want? You're in the same position, right? So you need to bring your ecosystem into place. You need to extend your supply chains, and you need to extend this knowledge base into your ecosystem for you to become resilient.
Okay, understood. So basically, what's your target market? The corporates are your target market.
Essentially, the corporates, yes.
Okay, understood. So, sir, one more question about your course: that how can your course help in creating the future leaders who are willing, young entrepreneurs who are willing to start their career in supply chain management? So, how your course can help them?
See, we have two kinds of programs which we run. One is for the junior level, essentially want people who want to make a career in supply chain. We have a series of certifications which we offer for them. What we give them there again is looking at supply chain in two different ways. The traditional body of knowledge for supply chain. If you look at the traditional body of knowledge of supply chain, this was essentially, we used to talk about inventory management, economic order quantity, minimum order quantity, safety stock, cycle inventory, inventory classification. Those were one kind of, and then you have warehousing, transportation, understanding supply chain in its basic concept. So that was one body of knowledge which we had. Thanks to COVID, something new has come into the supply chain arena. So today people are talking about risk, they're talking about resilience, they're talking about analytics. How can I use data? And how can I use, what kind of analytics do I need to use? So we have changed the way supply chains are operating. Today we are talking about alignment, where across the board I need to be aligned. We are talking about increasing use of technology in supply chain. So how does technology impact supply chain? How do I, as a supply chain person, understand what technology I need to imbibe? So we created a program which will look at a strengthening the fundamentals of your supply chain, which is a traditional knowledge that you will have, and then bridge it out with what is needed for the future, which is essentially analytics based, data based, technology driven. Those kind of bodies of knowledge also we started integrating, creating programs which was across. And in our programs, we start from planning and take it all the way down. Most people ignore the planning part of it, but we feel that if anything should go wrong, it goes wrong in planning.
Yes.
And then it propagates down the line. So we see how various elements of your supply chains are interlinked, both within your organization and from outside. So that external internal linkage is something that we emphasize. And we are also trying to tell people that it is not enough for you to look at the old knowledge of how we used to create supply chains, right? I have a product. These are the markets. How do I get my product to the market in the cheapest possible? That used to be the way supply chains operate. What we have now come up and said is that you have a product. There is a customer who needs a product. How do I get this product to the customer? So instead of looking at it from my product to a customer, I say I have a customer. How do I serve that customer better?
Okay, understood.
So an outside-in perspective rather than an inside-out perspective. We believe that that's the way supply chains will go, because it's your generation which is driving this whole process. You're a very impatient generation.
Yeah.
You want everything today. You want to place an order and you want it executed the same day,
Yes.
whatever be the product.
Hmm.
I was talking to Kohler manufacturers, WCs and things like that. They are saying that their customers are asking for same day delivery.
Oh,
No, you don't buy a WC and keep it in your house unless you're doing a renovation. When you're doing the renovation at the right time, you want to get it.
yes.
And you don't renovate your house suddenly in the morning. Will say, okay, let me break everything and start.
Yeah.
But even that, customers have become so conscious of daily delivery. This is what is driving changes in supply chain. This is what is creating uncertainties. So we are trying to create that balance between what is needed
Hmm.
and what you already have. How do I migrate from what I have into something that is more relevant to the consumer today? How do I integrate the consumer into my supply chain? These are the
Okay.
kind of thought processes that we are bringing up in our programs.
So it's basically you are creating a customer centric approach.
Yes.
Yeah, understood. Great initiative. So the next question is so that if I took the ISCM course, so how can it advance my career? Like if I entered in my CV, so how can it help me in getting jobs? What's the
See,
importance of the course?
as of date, some of the best Indian corporates, I could name up to 70, 80 of the largest Indian corporates have engaged us.
Yeah.
And we are on their list for certifications. There are companies like Nestle and Accenture and all that, who have kept our courses on their list, saying that if you have done this course, you can go to this company and do this course. That will be used by us in your career progression, etc. So essentially, what it gives you over anyone else is a larger understanding of your supply chain. It is very difficult for someone to claim that if you do this certification, you will get a promotion. Promotions don't happen because of certifications.
Mm.
Promotion happens because how can you use that knowledge? How can you use your judgment in a situation, right? What our program helps you is that it helps you think about supply chain. Our exams are not a multiple choice question exam. Our exams are all based on case analysis and scenario analysis. It's about how you will react in a particular situation based on a set of data. So
Okay.
it's more decision centric that way. And
Yeah.
if you start thinking about decisions and you think data, that should come up in the way you work, right?
Mm.
And when you bring in the data centric approach to your work, you normally then can become a front runner when the promotion chance opens.
Yeah.
So, it gives you a very clear and practical understanding of supply chain and what supply chain and in which direction supply chain is moving. It
Yes.
also helps you use data in your decision making. So, that's a twin levers that we say will give you an advantage.
Okay. A better understanding of supply chain and data in supply chain. Okay. Great. 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 So, sir, as per a recent case study, KFC faced a major supply chain issue in US chicken shortage. So, about 700 stores were shut down because they partners with DHL. Because DHL had only one operating store in the US. So, what's your major advice to the companies who are trying to partner with the supply chain management, and what should they look in for the companies that are providing them with the supply chain?
See, there are two schools of thought. The Western school of thought believes that I need to have more than one partner when I go in for a supply chain uh, because that de-risks my supply chain. If partner A fails, then partner B will pick up. That's the Western school of thought, and that's why a lot of people try to have some alternate arrangements and have more than one uh, partner within your supply chain ecosystem.
Hmm.
The Japanese way of thought is entirely different. They say that I need one customer, I need one supplier who will be very strong,
Hmm.
and I will strengthen that person. I will make him, I will see that he doesn't fail. At the end of the day, why should somebody fail? Why should a company fail if it is not able to generate enough business, right?
Yeah.
That's the only reason why you will fail. Or your management is stupid.
Yeah.
The management commits suicide by going in for a wrong set of investments and things like that.
Hmm.
So Japanese way of doing business is that let me create very strong suppliers, give them scale, make them profitable, and I will partner with them. So there are two schools of thought that comes up. This is more now a cultural issue. Most of us believe the Western way is what we should do because we all do our MBAs from American universities and British universities or European universities. The thought process which has come down has been let us de-risk our supply chain. Now, whatever happens, if there is going to be a large scale disruption in the supply base, like in this case, let's say there is a bird flu that has happened. Half the population of chicken has to be killed, culled,
Yes.
as they call it. It will disrupt your supply chain.
Hmm.
Right? If there's a mega issue that's happening, it will hit your supply chain. What you need to look at is if there is a problem in the domestic supply chain, can I then extend it to a plan B, which is looking at, let's say, a Mexico or a Canada? Does their industry have the ability to bring in the supplies that I need? If so, can I go and in emergency, what is the extra that I will have to pay? Sometimes the business might think that spending that extra money in keeping the business running is not worth it. I'm going to bleed, right? If I want to bring in chicken from Mexico,
Mhm.
it's going to be a higher cost for me. The moment I go and buy more chicken, the prices of chicken itself will shoot up. So,
Yeah.
A, the price of the raw material goes up, then the logistics cost goes up, and you don't want to get into that. So, you might say what KFC did at that point in time was the right decision for KFC. They said that instead of getting into the cost war, because my consumer is not going to pay me more because I've imported it from Mexico, let me shut down my store because the same consumer will come back once I open.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a very practical decision that companies would take. Uh, you cannot preempt disruption in your supply chain.
Hmm.
Small disruptions you can manage. Large disruption, you will have to create the resilience in your business as to how quickly can I recover from this problem.
Yeah.
So the focus should not be on preventing a disruption, but in saying some things will happen. If bad things happen, how quickly can I get back on track?
Hmm.
So resilience becomes that exercise of yours as to how quickly can I get in. In fact, there's a Harvard study which says that they created two things which is called time to recover and time of disruption. If the duration of the disruption is very long and your time to recover is short, you will survive because very quickly you will be able to come back into business. If it is the other way around, when the time to recover is very high, then you are in problem.
Yeah.
So focus on your time to recover. The recovery time is more important for you for resilience purpose. So uh, corporates should not worry about disruptions.
Hmm.
We keep talking about black swan events. The technical black swan event is once in 25 years. But today we have almost every year something major happening somewhere in the world which is disrupting our supply chain. So we have a black swan event every year. We
Hmm.
cannot prevent, but we can ensure as to how will I be able to survive this and
Hmm.
recover from this. That should be the focus of corporates, not preventing disruptions.
Okay. So in short, there should be a plan B so that we can execute it immediately.
Yes.
Okay, understood.
Sometimes the best plan B would be as what KFC did to shut down the shop.
Yeah, like KFC did.
It is a good plan. I
Yeah.
don't bleed. I reduce my cost. I survive.
Hmm. Okay, what KFC did was right.
Yes.
Yeah, we can say that. You, as you said about COVID, so how do you think the Russia and Ukraine war has affected the supply chain all over the world?
See, it is not the direct impact of the Russia-Ukraine war which has
Yes.
created disruption in the supply. Yes, there was a disruption. For example, the Russian gas and oil stopped coming into the market, so the oil markets got disrupted. But then uh, Russia was also the primary source of wheat for sunflower oil, a lot of other products, mineral-rich country. The war created tensions there, and the supply lines were disrupted.
Mm.
But had just that been the case, we could have created alternate supply lines. The problem escalated from a Russia-Ukraine war into a geopolitical face-off.
Mm.
It was more of the European and Western nations putting sanctions on anyone who deals with Russia and not allowing the raw materials to move to those countries where Russia was doing business with. Those created larger disruptions in the market.
Mm.
So, and these are things which will keep happening. Tomorrow it will be a China which will disrupt.
Yeah.
Day after tomorrow it could be a Mexico or a Venezuela. Venezuela is already in trouble. It could be a Mexico that happens, or it could be a Canada which happens. Though Canada is minuscule when it comes to global supply chains. Population of 30 million people and very small market. Some products do come out of it, but there are alternate sources too, so we can always
Mm.
change those sources. So any geopolitical tension will disrupt supply chains. Ukraine war created a geopolitical situation which affected large areas of our supply chains. And each country responded to it based on its own strengths.
Mm.
Thankfully for us, we were in a very strong economic position. We were also in a very strong military position. And therefore, we could continue to buy Russian oil. Not only that, we brought in Russian oil, refined it, and sent the refined products back to the Europe, which earlier they used to refine themselves. So it became good for companies like Reliance who had a windfall profit.
Yeah.
So some sectors of the Indian economy did very well because of it.
Mm.
Some did get affected, but then we very quickly changed. If you would remember, few years Couple of years back, Mahathir Mohamad in Malaysia made some statements against India.
Mm.
And then we immediately stopped import of palm oil from Malaysia. That was a geopolitical posture. We disrupted the supply chains knowing that Malaysia was the largest supplier. We went to Indonesia and shopped.
Yeah. Mm.
Geopolitical tensions will cause these kind of disruptions, but it's on our own strength of the economy and the strength of the country which will help us to come out.
Yeah. Okay. So it's basically not just the war was the reason, the geopolitical conditions were the problem.
Yes.
And as India was in a great position, so it made business and profits out of it. In short.
Yes.
Yeah, understood. Sir, you are also a specialist in supply chain finance. So, what is basically supply chain finance? Can you please brief about us?
Yeah. The traditional look at supply chain finance is that, I am selling you something. So, I am a supplier to you.
Mm.
And typically, in most cases, in 99% of the cases, the buyer is a larger entity than the supplier.
Yeah.
So, now I am an entity, I am supplying material to you.
Mm.
Between us, there is a credit term. Right? You will say that once I receive the material, I will pay you after 60 days. Right? But I am a small scale person. I do not have the capability to pay you, to wait for 60 days for my payment to come. I need cash to run my business. So what do? I go to a bank and say, you will go to the bank. You are the buyer. You go to your bank and say, listen, I want a facility called supply chain finance. Essentially, what the bank is going to do is that the bank is going to look at your credit risk, your rating. Let's say you are a AAA rated company and say, okay, as a AAA rated company, you get loan at, let's say, 8% or 9%. It will give me a loan for the business that I do with you at 9%. So what happens is that the bank gives me money less a discount which they'll upfront take. So if I have to get 100 rupees from you, the bank will give me 90 rupees.
Yeah.
10 rupees is what it will take as its charge.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I get my 90 rupees. After 60 days, you pay the bank.
Okay.
So my loan is over. You will pay the bank. So that becomes the supplier finance towards the supply side of it. Similarly, you will do it towards the vendor side of the. So there's a vendor, so your customers, your dealers. You want, normally what do you do? The moment you sell, you will debit the dealer and take money from him.
Yeah.
He does not have money to buy. So he goes back to your bank. So you will tell your bank, okay, give him a loan. So the bank will give him a loan on your rating for the business he is doing with you.
Mm.
Whatever terms. So you will say that, okay, 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is. Right.
Okay.
And then he will sell his goods, recover the money, and pay the bank.
Okay, understood. So it's basically a two-way system.
Yeah.
In which bank is assisting both the supplier as well as the buyer.
Yes.
And benefiting itself. Okay.
Yes.
So which company should consider supply chain finance? What all factors? What all factors should they take in hand before doing it?
It is not what the company should consider. What the company is trying to do is that it is trying to ensure that its vendors and its customers have the ability to continue to remain in business. They have the cash flows needed to be in business. Right. So as a company, what you are doing is that you are using your goodwill in the banking system to ensure cash flows to your suppliers. Now, if your supplier is a large supplier, then this is not necessary.
Mm.
But most of the time, your suppliers would be small suppliers, smaller than. This becomes necessary for you. So that what is the other alternative? You pay upfront, which is not a very good thing for you as a manufacturer.
Yeah.
You don't want to buy goods, pay money, manufacture it, sell it, and then recover money. That you bear the entire risk. In this case, the risk is getting disbursed. It is getting across the chain, and the bank is helping you achieve that. So it's a fairly low risk kind of a game, because the bank knows that you have purchased material, you are a good customer of the bank, therefore you will pay. Your ability to pay is not in question. If I go directly to the bank, they'll say I am such a small person. Most of the time, I will be a private limited company or a partnership company where the balance sheet itself is not very sacrosanct. Right?
Yeah.
So all those elements are now out of the picture. So it becomes far more easier for you to run this ecosystem, which will help both your vendors as well as your suppliers achieve, what do you call it, as liquidity.
Yeah, so it's all about the game of customer retention and the liquidity of the company.
Yes.
Yeah, great. So the moving on with the next question. So do as the AI and technology is growing, so do you think it may affect the job in supply chain with the growing AI?
No. See, this is something that we have been talking for a long. I remember when the first round of computerization happened in the banking system, there was a huge protest by everyone in the banking system saying that computers are going to remove bankers. There will be no more bankers. It will be only computers.
Yeah.
30 years later, what is the situation? The banks are employing more people than they're employing them in better positions. The same thing happened in supply chain. Tell me, as a graduate student, would you want to do data entry?
Yeah.
Would you like what is your job description? Entering data into an Excel sheet or into an
No.
SAP or into an Oracle. That is your job. You have done your MBA.
No.
Is that the kind of job you want to do?
No. Absolutely not. No.
These are the kind of jobs that are going on.
Mm,
And what is coming in its place? Analytics. What is
mm,
coming in its place? Development.
mm,
Now, you would join a company. Let's say you join 3M. A good
mm,
company.
mm,
You join 3M.
mm.
3M has got, let's say, 500 suppliers who are supplying material. What will be the caliber of those suppliers people? Will they be the same as what 3M has?
No.
3M will have better quality people. So you in 3M will have to become a mentor to the 500 odd companies who are the small scale suppliers to 3M. Your job profile will change.
Mm,
You will become a person who will orchestrate the supply chain.
mm,
You will use this based on data. You will use your analytics. You will use your technology. You will use your understanding of optimization. You will use these are the strengths that you bring to the table to create that kind of advantages to the supply chain. And
yeah.
that is what people are going to look at. That's a
Mm.
kind of jobs that will get created. Some jobs will go on. A
Like,
lot of this, a lot of jobs in supply chain is essentially coordination. So
yeah.
if you ask a supply chain person, what do you do in a day? 60 to 70% of the time is in follow-ups
Mm, yeah.
across the spectrum. So for me, a follow-up is a waste of time. But unless you follow up, nothing seems to be moving. And why do you need to follow up? Because you are no visible. You do
Mm,
not know what's happening.
mm,
Right? If that visibility is available to you, you are aware what's happening, what's actually happening. You are aware of the ground situation.
yeah.
If there is a problem, you will be able to intervene early on.
Mm,
Today, what happens? Let's say a simple example. You have asked for trucks. You want to send material somewhere, you call for a truck. Today, you will call up someone, you will put it into your portal saying that I want a truck going from Bengaluru to Delhi. I have got 40 tons of this material to be shifted. So I want a 40-ton truck going from Bengaluru to Delhi. It has to come, let's say, tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock at my factory. That is a request you have. So you will contact your truckers. You will have some truckers in your list. You will contact them, tell them that this is what I want. Somebody will say, okay, I will come. I will take your goods and go. So you finalize that trip with that trucker. 99% of the time, the truck doesn't come. It is always late. He's supposed to come at 10 o'clock. He doesn't come. He comes at, let's say, 4 o'clock in the evening. Now, you were supposed to load the truck, prepare document, and dispatch it so that it can reach its destination. If he comes in the evening, what happens to the entire process? There's a delay.
Yeah.
After 4, 5:30, who's going to stay back and do this work?
No one.
Supply chain. They have to stay back because the dispatch has to happen. If they don't stay back, so you'll find supply chain guys working late. Your life, quality of life is, the work-life balance is almost not existing. These are issues which will come. And therefore, what do? You start following up. So the moment you tell the trucker that, I have won this truck, you will start calling him up. Where is the truck? So it tells you, sir, it has just left. It's on the way. You start, having these useless conversations with the ecosystem players about things which should have been known without human interaction. A lot of these jobs will go. Fair enough. Do you want to spend 60% of your time on the phone calling up people and saying what has happened to my order?
No.
Or would you want to spend your time more analytically trying to see how can I improve my processes, how can I improve my systems?
Spending more time on data and analytics, yeah.
So that is where the jobs will move. The routine jobs anyway has to go. It is not something which is very fulfilling to anyone.
Yes.
And it's a huge cost, and there are a lot of mistakes which happen because of people. People are prone to make mistakes. So you're avoiding mistakes. Those jobs will go. Let it go. New jobs come up. But it will still exist. Why? Because you cannot manufacture. Manufacturing will always be centralized. You'll have few locations where you have factories, while the consumption will be across the world. So you need to bring raw materials from across the world to your factory, manufacture it and send it out across the world.
Yes.
So supply chain you cannot make this online.
Yeah.
You can place an order online. There is an order for a shirt online on Amazon, but somebody has to manufacture the shirt and ship it to you, and it has to come to you. That becomes a supply chain. And that is where supply chains will continue to exist, but they will change in the nature of the job.
It basically means that the jobs will not get disrupted, but the traditional methods will be changed by the current methods by adding more and more technology and software.
Yes.
It cannot be changed. Yeah.
It will not be changed. We're speaking to a lot of large corporates, and all of them are bullish about. They're expanding their supply chains.
Yeah.
So India is going to be a growth economy. Even if we grow at 7-8%, our supply chains will continue to grow.
Yes.
And if you continue to grow, you will find more jobs. It's not that jobs will continue to grow.
Yes, jobs will continue. Yeah, correct. It's all about, because coordination is must in supply chain. So coordination cannot be taken away by AI or technology.
Yes.
It's all about the manpower. Okay, I understood. So, sir, the next question, moving on to the next question. Each industry has its own threats as well as opportunities. So, what do you think in this regard with the supply chain industry?
See, the supply chains have always been prone to threats and disruptions. What we do not realize is that this is not something that is new or unique. Okay? For example, it's very routine. It happens every year.
Yeah.
In the North India, there's a festival called Kavad Yatra. Essentially, what do? Is that people in the northern belt, they go from their homes to Ganges, fill pots of water, and walk back. So they walk 1,500 kilometers each way to bring this water and use it in the temples there.
mm,
During this festival, there's a huge disruption in your entire road traffic.
mm,
Roads are closed and only these cars can move. It happens every year. It's a disruption. You
mm,
need to plan for it. You need to plan alternate routes. You need to plan inventory zone, buffer zones where you can keep inventory and then move quickly into the destination areas at the time when the cowards are not walking. They
mm.
normally don't walk in the night. So on the night, how do I stage it from point to point and get it out across? These are the kind of things which supply chains has to do. It is never that you're going to remain the same work doing it day in, day out. Every day, every disruption is a new challenge.
Yeah.
So you will always see that uh, disruptions keep happening.
Mm,
Some of them are routine disruptions. Some of them are once in a while disruptions. Some of them are highly local disruptions. Your ability to manage and understand them and deal with them on a one-on-one basis in real time. How quickly can I gear myself up and react to it so that my company is least affected is what ensures your success as a corporate. And that is what will be the distance. Some
mm.
of them will be everyone will get affected, some only you will get affected. If you're a agriculture based industry, crop based industry, you have to worry about the crops, cropping
Mm.
patterns, whether all these becomes disruptors to your supply chain. So how are you in a position to understand what is happening well in advance so that you can take a preemptive position is what defines you as a supply chain person.
Yeah, understood. So how can the companies prepare themselves in advance? Like how can they predict that this kind of problem will come in the supply chain? So we should create a plan as per this. How can they predict in advance?
I wouldn't want to get into prediction. Prediction is a very dirty word.
Yeah,
In fact, somebody has said that if you're predicting something, predict it so far into the future
yeah,
that nobody will realize. If you're wrong, nobody will even know about it.
yeah,
And if you're right, you will, tom it and become famous for it.
yeah,
Prediction.
yeah,
Uh, Companies should do what they did in COVID. In COVID, what we did, we created a war.
yeah,
What is a war room? It is a place where brought in all people who are related to a company. So the HR, it will be manufacturing, it is the sales, it is the supply chain, it is production, it is sourcing. All of them were brought together to work together to address a problem and solve it. We brought in these multifunctional teams to come together to address a problem. And that is what companies should and the moment COVID got over, we went back to our old way of doing business. We did something well during COVID.
yes,
We broke down silos, we brought people together. Now that the threat is over, we are back to where we were. Now the silos have come up again. The production guy doesn't want to talk to the supply chain guy, who doesn't want to talk to the marketing guy, who doesn't want to talk to the finance guy.
mm,
Everyone is saying that this is my domain, keep out of it. So this is what companies should do. They should continue that breaking down the silos and aligning the organization. That is the need of the hour. Otherwise, we are in serious trouble because a lot of inefficiencies in our companies come up because we don't talk to each
yeah,
other. And
yes,
even if it's in a university, you will find this kind of mismatch in terms of communication happening.
mm,
So it is not just corporate world. Every organization has this problem in communication. That is primarily because if I have to share data with you, I have to send you the data. If we move to an online situation where the data is available, I can call the data whenever I want. then a lot of these problems are solved. So moving towards a fully digital enterprise, the digital transformation as they call it, is one of the reasons for that is to break down silos and create efficiencies in my processes. Today, each one takes a decision without regard to what will happen to the other sides of the uh, organization. Very simple example. As a marketing, the marketing has come up with this brilliant strategy and said, we want to reach into the rural parts of India. Right? There's a lot of consumers there. We want to tap the growing rural markets of India. That's the marketing's strategy. Supply chain, I want to reduce the cost of supply chain.
Hmm.
I want to reduce my cost. Now, if you're going to the villages, rural market, what will happen to the distance you have to travel?
Yeah.
It increases.
Hmm.
If the distance increases, what happens to your supply chain cost?
Increases.
It increases. Now, you
Yeah.
have two strategies. One says reduce cost, the other says increase cost.
Hmm.
Where is the alignment happening?
No. Yeah.
This is what we need to align. Then
Hmm.
the company should have one objective, one clearly defined vision, one strategy,
Hmm.
and all work towards that strategy.
Yeah.
But I'm amazed that companies can have a supply chain strategy, it can have a manufacturing strategy, it can have a finance strategy, it can have an HR strategy, it can have a marketing strategy. How can you have 5 different strategies in one company?
No.
You need to have just one strategy,
Hmm.
and everyone should work for that.
Yeah.
That is what companies should come up with.
Hmm.
And supply chain is today a crucial part of it. We never realized this.
Hmm.
Because today we suddenly have realized if my product is on the shelf, it will get sold.
Hmm.
I can have the best product in the world, but if it is not on the shelf and the consumer wants it,
Yeah.
it's pointless.
Yeah. Correct.
So I need to ensure my availability. So supply chain suddenly became important.
Yeah.
Earlier we used to say that customer would wait. Today, which customer will wait?
No one. No one.
You want to go and buy a Colgate toothpaste not available, you'll pick up a P&G toothpaste and go. You will
Yeah.
not say, let me wait for 3 days, I will not brush my teeth, but I will use only Colgate.
Yes.
We are become changed. We have changed. That kind
Impatient.
of brand loyalty is no more there.
Yes.
And you are the generation leading the change.
Yeah. Impatient generation.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the last question for you is like it's quite a personal question. So before ending, I wanted to you to tell some funny or some your journey. How has it been in the supply chain? Any funny instance or any serious moment? How you felt in the supply chain management journey as of now?
There have been multiple situations where we have faced interesting observations.
Yeah.
In one company where we were doing some training, they used to have the sales and operations plan.
Mm.
At the beginning of the month, they used to decide how much will we manufacture, what will we manufacture, where will we manufacture, and then make plans out of it.
Mm.
And then they said, we make it dynamic, which means whatever change, whatever happens in the market, we will also want to react to. But on one hand, you have a plan, which is something that you want to achieve. And the other hand, you are saying that I want to become dynamic. Whatever order comes, I will fulfill it.
Yeah.
Now, for me, from a strategy perspective, this looks kind of strange. This
Yes.
doesn't gel well. It's a
Mm.
serious issue. It's not a funny situation. It's a serious issue. As an organization, I need to understand that I have a planning process in my planning process. I should be able to know what is the headroom I have to tap into opportunities. I cannot have unlimited headroom. That will put a pressure on the organization. Sometimes the cost of doing that business becomes very high. We are not looking at cost of doing business. We are not looking at cost of servicing a customer. A very simple question that I ask people is that how much does it take for a company to place one order? People don't know that. We have a lot of serious issues within supply chain. Uh, Light-hearted moments, uh, not I wouldn't want to call them light-hearted because they become light-hearted only because their companies have not followed the logic which should be followed.
Mm.
We were once called for a training on advanced analytics. So when we started discussions, it was starting from partial differential equations, we will go up.
Mm.
And we went for the training, and the first question that I got asked was, what is standard deviation? Now, that's statistics 101. You are coming for a partial differential equation program, and you do not know statistics 101. So, again, it's sad reflection of what people are. Uh, there are such issues, and then within the whole transportation issues, there are some minor things which keeps happening. Practices which are sad, though at that time we used to laugh at it. But from a human perspective, it is looking at it, it's a very sad situation, reflection of the society itself. How we treat women in the supply chain, how we treat women drivers, what kind of challenges that they have. So a lot of serious issues within supply chain. I have not run a supply chain, and therefore I am not. I don't have those daily small fun elements which come in. We look more towards creating the right serious issues within supply chain is what we are grappling with. The major problems are essentially not understanding into it. People are refusing to go beyond their small circle of comfort. So
Yes.
I am a sourcing person, I will work within that. I will not go outside that. Unless I go outside, I won't know how my work is affected. So issues there, and those issues need to get addressed, and that's what we are all working towards. We write about it, we speak about it, we teach this. Though off late I have not taught in these schools for a very long
Yes.
time. I teach more of corporates.
So it's a very nice initiative, sir, ISCM. I hope that you grow and you give more and more
Thanks.
learning in the future to the young
Thanks.
generation as well as the corporates so that it may help them and it may build the future leaders. So thank you for giving your time on our podcast. It was great having a conversation with you, sir.
Have
Looking
a nice
forward to having more discussions like
day.
this.
Definitely. Yes.